Hey, in today's show, we're going to be going through our next step in our basic MVC project, where we actually use a lot of the pieces within Visual Studio to build your pages. Stay tuned. Hey, Frank Thomas here with Frank's Tech Channel. We're going to be going through the next step of building out an MVC project using a lot of the tools that are built right into Visual Studio. When I was initially taught this through boot camp, they glossed over the features within Visual Studio and had me build everything by scratch. I get why they did that, but you know something? When you're learning, sometimes you need to just play with the basics. As you can see, we've done nothing exotic in previous videos, and we're going to continue that trend. But we're going to build the pages we need to modify a customer record, to view it, to delete it, to create it, etc., etc. So let's take a look at Visual Studio. We did leave off with building our model we created inside of the database, a customer database. But now I want to actually create a controller from scratch, and then the views that go with the controller based upon the model customer. Again, we're not doing anything exotic. I'm not worrying about view models or anything like that. This is basic. Okay, in controllers, I'm going to, oh crap, let me do that. I'm going to say add controller. Now, you're going to notice that I'm going to just use a blank controller, okay? And I'm going to say add. This is the easiest way to do it. Now, I have to have the name of what the controller is going to be. So I'm going to say customers with an S. Now, when I call that page, it'll be the website / customers for the default index page, just so you know. Okay, so I'm going to pull that up. Okay, so this is where we start. We have a very basic controller here. There's really nothing in here. We can create a view, which we're going to do in a second. But first of all, we have to actually pull data from the database, because if we run this now, it's going to tell me there's no page. But the next thing is we build the view, which is the actual page. So I'm going to right-click on that. I'm going to add a view. Okay, so this is what's really cool about Visual Studio. This is my name index. Now, I'm not going to use an empty template. I'm going to look for the list, okay, because this is the list of customers. And I'm going to look for the model class customer. Okay, I'm going to leave everything else the same. I'm going to hit OK. Now, what it's going to do is going to go out there and build the page for me. But you notice here at the very top, it's looking for a object called customer, okay, dbModel.customer. So we have to fill in the blanks here. So what we have to do is we have to call up the database. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a blank customer here. Okay, the name of the object is customer for a single one. I'm going to reference the models folder. Remember, control period will bring up that menu. Okay, and I'm going to call this customers. Okay. Now, to open up and close the database nicely, this is probably the best way. Okay. Now, I'm not going to do anything exotic. We're going to call the entity database based upon its name. Okay, there it is right there. Okay. And I'm going to say equals new entity database with brackets, nothing in them. And we're going to put squigglies here. Now, the whole idea behind this is C# will take care of the opening and the closing of the database for us. When we enter out of this squiggly here, we're out. We've closed our connection to the database through entity. Now, you notice I did not put this statement into here because it would become local to this using statement. And when I went to call it here to pass it to the view page as customers, it would not see it. Okay. Let me just make sure I didn't make a boo-boo here. Oh, I know why. I didn't actually, because I'm going to be declaring it inside of here. But just in case, just to show you, because this is a common error, and I'm going to do that. And what it does is it declares an empty object for me. Because even though I called it up, it was still null. And the view did not like me sending null to it because it will error out. So what I did is I just created a new. I don't have to, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to pull something out of the data. Well, in the beginning, maybe not. So let's just see here. So let's say we need to we want to set customers. So we say customers are equal to, and we say context dot the name of the database or the name of the table, customers dot sort or sort. I do so much ADO. I keep thinking sort. Order by, and I have to tell how I want to order things. I don't have to do this, but I like to do this. So C is just a placeholder, and I'm going to sort it by last name. Okay, and then I'm going to say to list. Now, what I'm going to show you is I didn't need to put the sort in here. You see, it still likes it. What it's concerned about is I put the to list because I'm calling a list. The reason why I like to leave everything as a list, I find that it never leaves anything open or hanging in the end on me. I find if I didn't put it to a list, if I just did an IEnumerable, which is another type of variable, sometimes I can run into problems, especially if I do multiple calls. I could do a call here and a call right behind it. If I don't move them to lists, the second call will fail. It will throw an exception. So I'll leave it at that. Now, I did the order by as a way to give the list some sort of order. So I'm listing and I'm ordering it all by last name. I could have did by first name, I could have did by ID, whatever I want. So now I'm passing these values to the actual page. Okay. So there we go. We got that page. We got that here. We're going to save everything. I'm going to jump over to the index page here. I'm going to allow it to run. I'll just take a second here. And if we do everything right, we shouldn't get any errors. And, guys, when you're writing code, you're going to make errors all the time. It happens. It happens. I do it all the time. But Visual Studio is very intelligent and keeps us on the straight and narrow. Okay, so we have nothing there. Now, I did notice something here. This first name, this last name is all kind of smushed together, the zip code. We're going to handle all that later when we get into, the finer details. So we have our list. There's nothing there. I could go more exotic by adding something in here that looks to see if there's any entries in here, or the count is less than 1, or if the count is 0 for the number of customers, and say we have no customers. I could do all that, but I'm not going to. Again, basic. I want to change things as little as possible. Okay, so we have a few buttons in here. We have the ability to create an entry right at the top here. So I'm going to grab, that's the action name, okay? This is when we create an action link in Razor. This is going to be the name that's on the page, create new. But this is going to point to customers/create. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the folder here. I'm going to create a new get statement. And this is going to be customers/create. Okay, public action result. Again, I'm not going to do anything exotic. Create. I'm going to really follow close to the plan. You can do a lot of really crazy and cool things with JavaScript or with different commands in the C#. But again, basic. Okay, we're going to do create here. Just consulting my notes just to make sure I do everything right. So initially what we're going to do is we are going to create a new customer. So I'm going to say customer equals new customer. Okay, so we've created a blank object or an empty object. Okay. And then what we have to do is we have to pass it to the view. Because we have to give it something, because you'll see in a second why. Okay, so there we go. So we've created a blank object, and we're going to pass it. Now we're going to right-click and go through the Add view again, Create. We're going to use the template Create. We're going to use the model class Customer, and we're going to say Add. Okay, so again, Visual Studio puts a lot of great stuff in here for us. You're going to see something here called an anti-forgery token. This is a security method to ensure that the data that's put in is put in through this page, and it's not, you haven't got a black hat hacker that's trying to do things you're not supposed to on a site. Okay, so what's going to happen is, and also too, there's validation built in, server side as well as customer side. So what we're going to do now is we have to, because we're filling in a form here. Once a form is filled in, we got to send the data somewhere. So we go back to the customer controller, and what we're going to do is we're going to create another page that's called the same thing, but we're going to call this a post. And what we're going to do, by default, just so you know, HTTP post. These here, if I don't put this in here to tell it what kind of call this is, it's by default a GET. So I don't have to put HTTP GET on these statements. I could, but I don't. So I'm going to say public action result, create, same name. And I'm going to create a customer, because I'm pulling this from the page. Okay, this is being returned back to me from the page. And one thing that I had a really hard time understanding when I was learning this concept is I only have, by default, a object, as in one object, that I can add stuff into and take stuff out. And this is why view models are important. A view model can contain data that you might add in on this page. Like, you might have a checkbox here. Click this checkbox to confirm the creation. But it's not really part of the master record in the end. So what happens is that becomes part of a view model. But I only have one. Yes, there is something called view bag. There's something called, I can't remember the name of it now. It's almost like instance cookies and stuff like that you can set up. But again, nothing exotic here. Okay, so we have our page. Let's go back to our controller. Now we have to tell this controller a few things. First of all, when we get the data coming in, we have to check to make sure the data is correct on the server side. We can never trust the user desktop. So very easy. It's called model state. Okay, is valid. So in other words, I'm putting a not in front of it, or a bang, and this says if the view model state dot is valid is not valid, I'm just going to simply say return view, and I'm going to repass the customer information back to it. Okay, and that'll just jump right back out, and it'll take you back to the page showing you the errors. Okay, and again, all handled for us. Fantastic. Okay, but let's say everything's kosher. Okay, the next thing we're going to want to do is, if we've confirmed everything's good, we actually want to save this to the database. So again, we're going to create a using statement, and I'm going to cheat here by grabbing all the information here. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to create a new entry. So I'm going to say context.customers add, and I'm going to add, you see the entity, I need the entity here. This is the customer entity, so I'm going to say customer. Because we've already done our pre-checks to make sure that we have the fields filled in that need to be filled in, life is good. Okay. And after I've done that, it's not yet committed to the database. Whenever you make a change, you have to save those changes. So save changes. Okay. So the changes have been saved. Now, let me show you a really easy beginner error. You can say, oh, you get so used to putting in things like return view, and you put in here index. Okay? That is not correct. Because what you're doing is you're pointing back to the index right here, maybe, maybe, but you set anything up. So you've not ran through this information here. So we use a different command. Actually, what I'll do is I'll run that and let you see it. Okay, this will let us check to make sure our pages and everything's kosher. But I have made this mistake a million times. It's so easy to make because you get so used to typing in the view all the time. Okay, so here we are. We create new. I'm going to say Frank Thomas, 123 any street, apartment 3, any town, any state, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to say create. And it should throw an error. You see, when it got back to the index page, it threw a null reference exception. Why? It's because after we did the save, in the controller, we pointed right back to the index with no information. We have to actually redirect to that action. So we're going to change that to redirect to action index. Okay, so let's just do ourselves a laugh here and run it again. And we're almost done for this video. We'll continue on from here in the next video. Okay, so here we are. We have our thing here. We can say create new. I'm going to say Brian Thomas. And I'm going to be lazy. I'm not going to, none of these other fields are necessary. Oh, actually, let's show the model state working. Create. See that? When I hit click and create, it came back to the page and gave me the error. And because it's running JavaScript correction, you notice the error disappeared. Okay, I'm going to create. So now I have 2 entries. Okay, so and everything just works now. That's what we want. Well, okay, in the next video, I'm going to probably leave it for here. But in the next video, we're going to go in and we're going to create the other pages, or at least some of the other pages. So I hope this has helped you out, guys. And make sure you stick around for the next video. And we'll continue with creating our MVC blank page website. Thanks a lot. Make sure you subscribe, or if you want to be a super subscriber, click that notification bell and you get my notification the minute I put out a new video. Talk to you guys next time.